Every throne they tried to throw in your path turned into the very stone they now trip over. That's the irony of cosmic balance. What they planned as sabotage, the universe repurposed as structure for your next level. You see, the system doesn't miss. No scream goes unheard in silence. No dagger stays hidden under a fake smile forever. What you endured was never just cruelty, it was karmic bookkeeping. And now, the math is catching up. Publicly. Chosen One, let's be clear, you're not part of the chaos. You are the calibration. The universe bends differently around you. They whispered, hoping you'd break. But you became the frequency that haunts their thoughts at 2 a.m. You are the unfinished lesson they never studied for, the ghost of every game they tried to play on someone smarter than them. They underestimated how the universe archives energy. And now it's giving them back what they thought they buried. You didn't just survive the hit. You became the reason they can't breathe in the rooms they once controlled. That's what chosen ones do. We outgrow the traps, we rise with receipts, and we never beg to be seen. If you've ever felt the shift, ever watched those who wished failure upon you quietly sink under the weight of their own masks, this space is for you. Like this message. Subscribe to this frequency, because you're not just watching your growth. You're watching justice in motion, and it only gets louder from here. Before we go any deeper, take a breath, because what's coming next will hit different. You're not here by accident. You didn't click this video because you were bored. You were drawn in because your spirit recognized the frequency. This is confirmation. This is alignment. And the ones who mocked your silence are about to watch your rise from the sidelines, speechless. So before we uncover the truth they prayed you'd never find, lock in, like this message, subscribe to stay tapped in, and drop 888 in the comments to seal your energy into this moment. Because Chosen One, this isn't just a video, this is a shift. And if you're really who they doubted, this is where their laughter ends. And your comeback begins. Let's get started. Number 1. Stop playing clueless. They're using your silence as a weapon. Reclaim your power strategically. Your silence wasn't uncertainty. It was set up. A carefully measured stillness. A tactic only understood by those who know how to win without lifting a finger. While they ran their mouths, you ran simulations. While they cracked jokes at your expense, you were reading the subtext, scanning the energy, analyzing the architecture of every lie they mistook for truth. You weren't sitting quiet because you didn't know what was happening. You were letting the pressure build, so when the truth dropped, it would collapse everything they built on your name. They thought you were asleep while they moved pieces across the board. But Chosen One, you were the board. The silence wasn't submission. It was surveillance. You weren't watching the drama. You were clocking patterns, the smirks they flashed when they thought they fooled you, the way conversations would shift the second you entered a room, the fake concern layered over real envy. You took mental notes with surgical precision. That's what's eating them now. And here's what stings the most. It wasn't your words that exposed them. It was your restraint. The fact that you never needed to shout to be right. The fact that you let them lie, manipulate, and parade around thinking they got away with it, only to realize much too late that you saw everything. Their fear now. It's not rooted in what you might say. It's in what you already know and how long you've known it. They mocked your absence, thinking you were broken. But you weren't gone. You were gathering your power. That eerie calm you moved in. It wasn't passivity, it was pressure, and pressure bursts illusions wide open. What they never factored into their schemes was your ability to weaponize stillness. You weren't reacting, not because you didn't care, but because you understood something they never will. Real power moves with timing, not emotion. You were never out of the game, you were just letting the game expose itself. And now, every snide comment, every whispered plan, every smug look, It's all playing in their minds like a bad dream they can't wake up from. They wanted you to play dumb, so you did. And now they're haunted by the version of you that was just watching. Because now that you're moving again, they're realizing what they really triggered wasn't a breakdown. It was a blueprint. You were never behind. You were just behind the curtain. And now that the curtain's been pulled back, they finally see the truth. It was never luck, never weakness, never confusion. It was design. And the scariest part for them, you haven't even started talking yet. Let them panic. Let them wonder how long you've known. Because the moment they mistook your silence for stupidity, that's the moment they wrote their own ending. Quietly, blindly, beautifully. Number 2. Don't explain yourself to mockers. Let the ones who laughed watch you rise in silence. Chosen one, you were never obligated to explain your silence to people who were never listening. The ones who laughed at your restraint. They weren't seeking understanding. They were feeding their egos. They mistook your pause for permission, your detachment for defeat. But what they didn't realize was this. You weren't inactive, you were igniting. And now, the very same mouths that used your name as a punchline are silent. Not because they've changed, but because the reality you carried quietly is standing in front of them loudly. You never had to bark. You became the storm. Why explain a blueprint to people who only showed up to break it? Why offer answers to minds already committed to misunderstanding? Number that was never your role. You weren't sent to convince. You were sent to confuse the system by thriving in silence, by elevating without applause, by letting your wins echo in the same rooms where they once mocked your stillness. Let them watch. Let their memory become the punishment. Because here's the sting. Your rise didn't need a rebuttal. Your growth was the response. And now they're choking on the irony. They underestimated the quiet one. And now they can't keep up with the one who never needed to speak. Number 3. Stop letting peace be misread. Set boundaries before your calm becomes their control. Stop mistaking peace for permission. Because the longer you let them feed off your stillness, the more they believe they own it. And when someone starts thinking they own your calm, that's when they start weaponizing it against you. Chosen one, your peace was never passive, it was power. But they saw it as a green light to keep crossing lines they were never invited near in the first place. They took your silence as submission, your grace as gullibility, your distance as defeat. But they never realized. They were never in control. They were just being tolerated. And now that you've pulled your peace back, the illusion they built around it is caving in fast. Because it wasn't them holding it all together, it was you. You were the anchor in their storm, the unshaken presence that kept their fake confidence standing tall. And now, they're spiraling in the void your absence created. They called you too calm when really you were too in control to clap back. But don't let that calm become a currency they trade in. Your peace is sacred, not public property. Set the boundary. Guard it like a vault. Because once they realize that peace no longer includes them, that's when the panic sets in. Let them misread you no more. Your stillness isn't surrender, it's strategy. And when that strategy no longer includes saving people from the chaos they created, that's when they finally realize you weren't dumb. You were dangerous, and now you're done playing nice. Number 4. Quit playing small for comfort. They dropped their guard, and now you hold the sword. Let's call it what it was. Strategy. You weren't shrinking because you lacked strength. You were camouflaging it. You weren't soft. You were surgical. They took your silence as softness, your smile as surrender. But they were never looking at the full picture, only the version you let them see. And that version was bait. While they grew comfortable thinking they had the upper hand, you were watching, silent, still, and far more dangerous than they could comprehend. They dropped their guard because you played it too well. And now they're face to face with the real you, the version that doesn't ask for clarity, doesn't beg for peace, doesn't wait for permission. You hold the sword now, and it's not for attack, it's for cutting ties, cutting through lies, and cutting off their access. They assumed you were harmless because you gave them comfort, but they confused your kindness for compliance. That was their first mistake. The second, thinking you'd stay in disguise forever. Now you walk different. Your eyes hold truth. Your silence stings more than any speech, and every step you take away from their manipulation echoes like a warning shot across their false reality. They never expected you to rise like this, but that's what happens when a chosen one stops playing small. You don't just return, you reclaim, and they can't laugh anymore, because now you're holding what they tried to steal, and you're not handing it back. Number 5. End the act. The illusion around you is crumbling because you were holding it together. Let's stop pretending, chosen one. The moment you stopped acting like you didn't see it, everything fell apart. Why? Because you were the only thing holding their illusion in place. Their lies only worked because you let them breathe in your stillness. Their false confidence only existed because you didn't correct them. And now that the act is over, so is their mask. They called you passive, when in reality you were protecting peace. They called you naive, when really you were nurturing clarity. Every room they thrived in while you kept quiet has now turned on them, and suddenly the ground beneath their ego feels like glass. You didn't snatch anything from them, you simply stopped carrying the weight they secretly knew they couldn't hold without you. They never had real power, just the illusion of it, stacked on your restraint. You let them talk, you let them pose, but now you've stepped out of the frame, and without you in the picture, their whole image is distorted. And now they're scrambling, not because you did anything new, but because you stopped pretending. That fake calm they built their status on, that was your spiritual discipline. That peace they used to cover up chaos, that was your presence. Now that you've reclaimed it, the truth is screaming through the silence. Let them fall, let it crumble, because the act is over and they finally see. You were never part of the illusion. You were the one holding the curtain. Number 6. Stop shrinking your light. It's not too bright. It's just exposing their darkness. Chosen one, let's call it what it really was. They weren't overwhelmed by you, they were exposed by you. Your clarity stripped their mask. Your calm highlighted their chaos. And every time you showed up fully present, they flinched, not because of arrogance in you, but because of the dishonesty in them. They said you were intense. What they meant was, we can't manipulate you. They said you were sensitive. What they meant was, you see through us. They labeled you too deep. What they meant was, we feel shallow next to you. And instead of owning that, they tried to shrink you. But now the same ones who told you to tone it down are the ones watching you in secret, trying to figure out how you shine so quietly, how you walk in power without performance. That's the haunting they didn't expect. The version of you that doesn't need validation to move. You were never playing dumb. You were playing it wise. You let their projections echo. You let their discomfort hang in the air. And now, they can't hide from what your light reflected. So stop dimming. Stop folding. Stop apologizing for what was divinely undeniable about you. You're not the problem. You're the proof. Let them cry in the dark. It's the only place their lies can survive. Number 7. Don't waste time on critics. They're secretly copying what they once mocked. Chosen one, let's make this crystal clear. You were never the fool. You were the blueprint. and the same voices that once laughed at your silence. They're now reshaping their whole personality around the fragments of what you used to say softly. They used to smirk when you walked in the room. Now they pause your content, study your tone, screenshot your quotes, and whisper your phrases like sacred mantras they refuse to credit. They'll never admit it. But your energy restructured their worldview. You see, critics aren't always enemies. Sometimes they're just students with fragile egos. They couldn't handle your presence then because you activated everything in them they were trying to suppress. So instead of clapping, they mocked. Instead of learning, they laughed. But the gag is, now they're mimicking the very moves they once mocked. And here's the irony that burns. They spent so much time trying to discredit you, only to realize they needed your blueprint to build anything that lasts. So don't waste your breath trying to prove yourself to people still choking on the version of you they couldn't break. Let them watch. Let them pretend they found it on their own. Because you weren't playing dumb, you were playing ahead. And now they're stuck trying to reverse engineer what you lived through. You are not their competition, you're their curriculum. Number 8. Silence isn't disappearance, it's the setup. Let them panic while you prepare. They thought silence meant you disappeared, that you were broken, that you vanished. But chosen one, let's set the record straight. Your silence was never an exit. It was preparation. It was the setup to a scene so calculated, so precise, that now the entire room is scrambling to keep up. While they danced in your so-called absence, you were architecting your return. Every delay was design. Every retreat was refinement. You weren't running, you were reloading. And now that your energy is shifting again, now that the silence is lifting, they don't know where to stand because they never expected you to rise this sharp, this steady, this unbothered. See, they assumed your stillness was surrender. But it was signal jamming. You weren't giving up the fight. You were removing your energy so they could expose themselves without interference. That's the part they didn't calculate. They thought you were gone, but now that you've re-emerged, every move you make feels like a seismic threat to their fragile narrative. The irony, you were never hiding. You were healing in stealth mode. You were listening, learning, loading every fake laugh, every shady comment, every subtle dig, and filing it under fuel. Let them panic. Let them drown in the silence they thought meant safety. Because what you built in that silence was the power to return without warning and take back everything with precision. Number 9. Stillness isn't weakness, it's the pre-earthquake calm. Let it build until it breaks. They mistook your stillness for surrender, but they never learned how earthquakes actually start. Not with chaos, not with noise, but with tension building in silence until the foundation snaps. Chosen one, they watched you sit still and thought you were stuck. They watched you grow quiet and assumed you ran out of power. But what they didn't realize is that your stillness was pressure loading behind the scenes, precise, silent, unstoppable. You weren't frozen, you were focused, you weren't inactive, you were preparing to erupt. They thought they had time, they thought your silence meant retreat. But the joke's on them, because while they laughed and lounged in false victory, you were calculating the impact zone. You were the calm before the blast, the warning they ignored, the tension they kept provoking, until now. And now they're watching the aftershocks ripple through everything they built. Conversations are turning awkward, their confidence is cracking, the mask is slipping, and you haven't raised your voice, you haven't even looked back. That's what terrifies them. Not that you exploded, but that you haven't yet, that you could, that you might. Your silence became the forecast they never planned for, and now every move you make carries the weight of what's coming. Stay still a little longer, let it build, because the shift you're about to trigger, they won't recover from it. Number 10. Stop reacting to every lie. Let time expose what you don't need to defend. Chosen one, listen closely. Not every accusation deserves your breath. Not every rumor needs your rebuttal. Your silence is not weakness, it's surveillance. And your patience, it's pressure. While they spin narratives to trap you in emotional outbursts, you're playing a longer game. A game where time becomes your most brutal ally. See, they're not afraid of your voice. They're afraid of what your stillness says about their character, because when you stop defending yourself, their lies collapse under their own weight. That's the punishment. They built a fortress of fiction, and now they're stuck living in it, alone. You were never put here to waste your purpose trying to correct people who are committed to misunderstanding you. That's not your battle. That's their mirror. And trust me, it's already cracking. Let time do the heavy lifting. Let reality do the revealing. You don't have to break their mask, just don't hold it up anymore. The moment you stopped reacting, they lost control of the script. And now, they're panicking, rewriting, spiraling, because you took back the one thing they never expected you to claim: power through silence. You're not avoiding the war, chosen one. You've already won it, without ever swinging. Number 11. Refuse to feel guilty for having boundaries. The ones who abused access will regret it. Stop apologizing for the walls you built after they kicked down your doors. Let that sink in. The ones who once had unrestricted access to your light, abused it, drained it, and called it love, are now suffocating in your absence. And here's the twist that keeps them up at night. You never blocked them because you were bitter. You blocked them because you were done. Chosen one, they got too comfortable consuming your energy without ever contributing to your peace. They thought your kindness was currency they could keep cashing forever. But what they didn't see coming was the exit plan, the shift, the silent severing of ties. You set boundaries and they labeled it betrayal, because they were never in it for respect, just access. And now, they're choking on the silence. They're staring at the locked doors they never imagined they'd be locked out of. Your boundaries weren't barriers, they were blueprints of self-respect. And the very moment you stopped explaining yourself, they started realizing just how much they depended on your presence to feel powerful. You weren't playing dumb. You were documenting the disrespect. You watched every guilt trip, every manipulative, guilt-laced apology, and you smiled because you knew you'd eventually be gone. And now they're realizing the game's over and you were the prize all along. Don't feel guilty for outgrowing disrespect. Feel powerful for finally refusing to host it. Number 12. You don't have to rip the mask off, just stop holding it up and watch it fall. Chosen one, you were never supposed to play clean-up crew for their chaos, but they got used to it, got comfortable. They built their entire image on your restraint, mistaking your silence for agreement, your tolerance for weakness. You weren't supporting them, you were containing them. And now, the moment you stop holding it together, the mask they wear is slipping faster than they can lie. You don't need to expose them. You never did. The real power was in simply removing your energy from the scene. You were the glue, the filter, the emotional gravity keeping their fake persona from falling apart. But now, you've walked away. You've gone quiet. And without your alignment to absorb the weight, their whole act is caving in under its own lies. That's the beauty of true power. It doesn't chase exposure. It creates collapse. And your decision to no longer hold space for what dishonors your vision, that decision is echoing louder than any confrontation could. Let them explain themselves. Let them scramble. Let them beg for the old you to return, the version that stayed quiet to protect egos. But you've evolved past that. You don't need to call them out. Just keep walking, because when you stop holding up their illusion, it crashes all on its own. And this time, there's no one left to blame but the one behind the mask. Let it fall. And as we close this chapter, let this truth settle in. You were never the problem. You were the pillar. The moment you stepped back, everything false began to crumble. That's the power of being chosen. You don't have to fight for recognition. Your absence becomes revelation. So, if this message struck something real in you, don't let it pass by. Like this video, subscribe to this frequency, and drop 999 in the comments to declare your release from every false role they tried to cast you in. This is your time now, and they finally know it.